What was it about you when the career readiness program came about, that all of the things that influenced you to be a part of the career readiness program?
It was about giving people the opportunity. Sometimes all people need is just a chance. It's not always about proving yourself that you need the chance. Just give me a chance or opportunity to be better, to do better, so that I can then live the life that God has destined for me.
Before we get into this episode, I know you've been struggling with the idea of starting your own business and launching a premium product that you know is going to transform lives. So I have a bomb resource for you. The man himself, Words Taylor, is going to help you launch your product or service for the clients who need your help right now. Now, you can't call yourself a business owner unless you are getting in front of new clients every single day, and Words knows exactly how to do that. All you have to do is tap in so he can teach you his 6-figure launch strategy that's produced over $5 million in client sales. So all you have to do is go to highticketlaunchsecrets.com. That's highticketlaunchsecrets.com and get into the free training. It's happening this week. So go to highticketlaunchsecrets.com and let's get into the episode. Welcome to another episode of the Work and Play Podcast. I'm your host, Ariel Young, and I have my very own person here today. I'm super excited. She's like my mentor. She's like wisdom all over, and he's super cool at the same time. So it brings it back like, okay, no. If you saw her shoes, it would be amazing. So without further ado, I would love for you to introduce yourself, my dear.
Hi, I'm Cherye Mercier. I've known Ari for about 5 years. We met at Delta Airlines, and as soon as we connected, we knew that this was not a friendship for a season or a reason, but for a lifetime. And I'm happy to reconnect with her again today.
Absolutely. I think it was more than 5 years. Actually.
Was it?
Yeah, because with the Auntie Roro, we got to add at least 2 years to that, I think, because I joined. Anywho, it's been a while.
Okay, it's been longer than 5 years.
It has. Yes. And you're right. I think that a lot of the things that I experienced in my last stint in corporate really was about personal development.
Yeah.
And there are times when you're navigating the hallways of corporate and you're like, listen, my day is going trash, but you bump into someone like you are my person. I bump into you in the hallway. I'm like, how you doing? And I'm like, oh, fine. No, how are you doing?
Right.
And we would stop and really talk about how I was doing, and it gave me an opportunity to really like think about where I'm going in life. What do I want my life to mean? How do I want this to matter? And you had a really, really big effect on me in that way. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's most important when I ask someone how they're doing, I'm genuinely asking you, how are you doing? Because I know sometimes it can be challenging to navigate corporate America, and I could tell that you were okay, but you were telling me, oh, you're fine, and everything was going well, but it wasn't. And so that was a moment for us to, one, to connect, and two, for us to sit down and let me know how you're truly doing and see if I can help in any way. Mm-hmm. Because it'll be a huge disservice for me to have gone through the things that I have and not share that knowledge or the experience with you, so we don't then make the same mistakes over and over. Yeah. And so that you can continue to love yourself even while you're going through things, or knowing where to pivot or where to change or who you can reach out to. Knowing your resources is very important, and I just wanted to be that resource for you.
You know what she said it just stuck out so big. Knowing that you can love yourself through it.
Yeah.
I think that for a lot of professionals, including myself, navigating an environment, any environment at work where you're not necessarily, your feelings aren't at the forefront.
Right.
Then you are mentally trying to, navigate and figure out who to trust and who not to trust, who to tell, how to get your next promotion, all of these things.
Right.
Meanwhile, you have to, your self-care, your perception of yourself is in jeopardy. So while we navigate this huge business world, you were definitely instrumental on that side. But then I also got to work with you on some projects professionally.
Yeah.
So getting to see you in your own element professionally and seeing that you actually are are like in terms of your strategy and your strategic input.
Yeah.
I think that part was also like really dope to see, because you can see a Black woman who's real, but who also knows her stuff.
Yes,
right.
yes.
So let's jump into your career a little bit, because I know you've been in corporate a lot longer than I could bear for a while. Which it's all a part of growth and development.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And each challenge that you go through, it helps grows you. So you grow through each challenge that you go through. I started out on the international gates at Delta Airlines. I quickly realized that wasn't the profession for me. That wasn't the career growth or the career path where I wanted to continue. Then I moved to the reservations building, working in different areas, from project management to rock coordinator and operations control center coordinator, working with flight control. From there I moved to revenue management, and then we connected in marketing communications, and then I went full circle with my career and ended on the corporate side of reservations, so customer engagement and experience, and just kind of writing the policy and procedures for our customers as they on their travel journey and they encounter different things. How does that experience then how to improve it for the customer? That's what I would say. But on the flip side, I've also helped my dad with his funeral home for over 29 years. So I've been in the funeral industry, but it's always tethered to customer service and treating people right. So I think as I live my life, that's always in the forefront. How do you treat the person that you're dealing with at that moment and at that time?
Yes, everything is people centered when I think about it.
Yes,
you are not only we didn't even talk about it, you've also had entrepreneurial experience since for so long.
Yes,
we got to get into that, because I was going to say since you were younger, but I know a lot about your story, but I don't know everything about your story, so we got to dig into that part. You mentioned going from the front lines to operations to marketing, even revenue management, all of these different, not industries, but
divisions within the company,
right? And they take different technical skill sets, right? But they also take that people part. What would you say you've learned is your sweet spot as you've touched all these different areas where most people might spend the entire part of their career? You've done multiple different competencies is what I'm thinking.
Right. And I think in each role, I never let go what I learned from my previous role, and I'm able to take a little bit more with me and give even more to a role because I have that experience. I have that knowledge. From each role, I would say, there were different skill sets that I learned, and it just helped me in my next role. In revenue management, you learn the business of the company. In reservations, you learned about customer service and how to treat the customers and their first interaction with the company. When I went to marketing communications, is how do we speak to the customers as we're trying to advertise them, to incentivize them to come and purchase something, a service that we're trying to sell. And then in each role, you just take a little bit with you. And then when I was in operations in the control center, is how does when we mess up a passenger's flight or a customer's flight, how then does that impact them? And so you just get a holistic view of different parts of the company, but it still touches one thing, and that's the customer and how it impacts them. And then dealing in the funeral industry, that's a very challenging moment for for anybody. So you're dealing with people at their most vulnerable time, and it's up to you to kind of help guide them through that experience. Excuse me, I retired after 24 and a half years with Delta. And then 2 weeks after I retired, I lost my mom. So then that was a very challenging moment because my whole world just changed. Something that I knew for 24 years, I was no longer doing. And then someone that I had my entire life who loved my benefits at the company, 2 weeks after I left, she passed away. So it was a cathartic moment. It was a soul searching moment for me to kind of think some things through and focus on what really mattered.
I'm extremely passionate about helping corporate professionals transition into entrepreneurship. So I had to share the number one thing that helped me develop as an entrepreneur, and that's the morning meetup. I joined the morning meetup specifically for the structure because I'm leaving corporate America, so I'm used to those morning huddles. We got our sales, we know what our goals are, and we get our day started. So I was missing that for 2 years before I even found the morning meetup. Now, the second thing that I really benefited from was the revenue. Revenue generating activities was not necessarily a thing before 2021. Now, I had my LLC, I had my website, I had a few clients here and there, but the momentum really took off as soon as I got around like-minded individuals and people who really knew the struggles that I was already dealing with, that I could get over my fear of sales and communicating my value and putting myself out there on social media. The friends that I've developed, the mentors and the mentees that I've created relationships with, everything has really created this environment for us to thrive as entrepreneurs. So if you want to develop as an entrepreneur, you're leaving corporate America and you're trying to figure out how do I get my footing in entrepreneurship, then the morning meetup will definitely be a game changer for you. You can learn with us, you can grow with us. And I didn't even mention that we have a book club. Join us in the community. Let's get started today. You will not regret it. I was also thinking, was it a moment where you had to take much of a leadership role in that, because you are really experienced in helping other people process that journey, right? And now here you are on this side going through your own process. Did you have to take the leadership role in coordinating that process and dealing with all the people and invitations and all of that?
Well, no, not so much. But since it is a family business, I have 2 older sisters and my dad, we just helped each other through. We helped each other through the process. And my mother had Alzheimer's, so they call that the disease of, it's a long goodbye, because it is a long goodbye. It's a person who you once knew and you slowly losing pieces of them over time. So we dealt with that for about 7.5 years.
Before actually.
Before she passed away. So you just process a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
And it determines how you process, how then you will end up once they do pass away. And we had peace because who she was and how she lived was not how she was ending her life. So that helped us find peace, that she was now at peace and didn't have to live like that anymore. But I think I kind of glossed over your initial question was, at Delta, what did I learn? And it was I'm good at multitasking. I'm project management. I can handle several different tasks at one time. And that, I live my life like that. I'm always juggling at least 5 or 10 balls at one time, as you know. Right. We've had to reschedule a couple of times because things come up. But at the same time, I commit to what I want to do, and I want to do it well. This was something that I think is good for me, us connecting again, because you were important to me, and I always wanted to see you succeed in whatever you do. So I was happy to help when you reached out to me.
I have always there, even when I reach out, even if it feels delayed, if I reach out to you, it's probably, I've already been thinking about it like 3 months in advance, and I know success loves speed, but oftentimes I just have to get to the queue of thoughts that I have. But you have been kind of top of mind for a long time, and even hearing as you're going through your own processes personally, and you are juggling a lot, so we have to actually talk about those things, because as you are always, you're like a duck.
In what way?
In a way, okay, got you. So the analogy is you know how a duck is super calm on the top?
Yes.
But if you look under the water, a duck is paddling. That's the way that I mean it. Okay. Because when we were still in our 9-to-5, you were also operating 2 businesses. Yeah. You were also a mom, right? And I always envy moms who can keep it together. You're a wife, and you were super, super cool. It didn't, even if it was a Christmas party, I remember that time when I caught you dancing on there. It wasn't a catch, because you were the center of attention, dancing on the dance floor.
But I love dancing with my husband. That's how we met, and we'll continue to dance forever.
Yeah. So let's talk about the development of Cherye.
Okay.
I'm thinking before, sometimes I think, oh, the days when life was so simple. You know what I mean? Like when there was only like one or two things, or when we were just children, we just had homework to deal with.
Right.
And all of a sudden we started grabbing all these new responsibilities.
And we wanted to be grown so fast and so quick. And for what? Because there's a lot of responsibility.
Because we want to go outside and eat our dessert first and come in whatever time we want.
And it's so overrated. But like they say, I wouldn't trade nothing for my journey now. Yeah. With growing up, I just knew that I was going to dance for Alvin Ailey. I danced for 18 years. I did ballet, tap, jazz, point. I did African dance, and that to the core of me, that's what my first love is, and that it always has been, is dance. And it's funny how I love dance, my husband loves music. So then, it's a whole vibe. Yes.
Now, okay, my mind goes to multiple different curiosities, and they, at this point, you guys know that we're going to get to all of these questions. But dancing, when did you find that, or when did you or your parents find that dancing was going to be a skill set of yours?
Oh, since I was 5.
A gift, rather.
Right, since I was 5, and up until my freshman year of college. I went to FAMU and danced there for a little while, but I didn't continue. I didn't pursue it. Like that was something I wanted to live my life doing. And it's not a regret, as if I could have done it differently. But that's one thing I would say, if it's something that you think you want to do, regardless of who says no or no, that's not cool, continue. Continue and focus, because that was my happy place.
I think a lot of times we grow up, we have these passions, we have a whisper of like, oh, okay, I want to do this, but then it's quickly shut down for whatever our doubts are based on how we were raised. But then we also don't necessarily have that exposure to like somebody who is in our space and is doing what we do.
Or either we don't, well, nowadays you have everything at your fingertips, but then it was a much harder pursuit to get to surround yourself in the environment of where you wanted to be. One thing, have you seen the Genius documentary with Kanye West?
Yes, I have.
His passion and his drive for what he wants, it was unrelenting. And if that was something, in addition to other things I'm trying to pass on to my children, is be unrelenting in your pursuit of whatever you want. And I think that's one of the most important lessons. Yes, we give them that foundation of going to church and being spiritual, religious, however you want to live your life. But you need to have that foundation first, and then building up on each of those lessons that then creates this being of who you are and how you then contribute in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My favorite part of that documentary, though,
what was that?
His mother's love.
Yes.
Like the influence that she had. So when we are in our heads, we need something external to shut that chatter down. And she just pumped his head into like believing himself. Even when he asked a question, do you think I'm too arrogant?
She said no. No.
I think that is, so in addition to like that unrelenting passion internally, that external influence is a big thing. And as I'm listening to you, I don't think we've ever talked a lot about the FAMU side of you. And then you also said African dance, right?
Yeah. I started that when I was in middle school.
Really?
African dance, yeah.
How did you come to understand your identity as a Black woman?
I'm evolving. I haven't defined it yet. I know that I'm a nurturer. I know that I'm loving. I know that I want better for anyone whom I can touch, influence, or affect. One of my roles, and it was a volunteer role when I was working in corporate America, was president of the Work and Family Business Resource Group. And I did that for 6 years, volunteer role, but it was important to me. It was important to help other parents, new parents, considering starting a family, or caregivers. It was important that they had the resources that they needed for informed decisions to help better their family. It was important because I was able to volunteer at Atlanta Public School and be a reading mentor to young children, to influence them, to help them know that whatever you learn, whatever you read, no one can take that away from you. And it's important that you know that. It's important to help other families who have a loved one with that has Alzheimer's, it was important to bring in Second Wind Dreams, which provided, it was more so a virtual experience living through the life of someone with Alzheimer's, how they hear, how they see, their processing, and then you can meet them where they are instead of trying to bring them into your world, because that's not reality for them. So it was important. And then I could go on and on. I had a friend whose son committed suicide. So I said, let's do a pivot and not have a suicide awareness panel discussion, but a suicide prevention. Let's help our family and our loved ones. If we see the signs, what do we need to do? We partnered with the CDC, and we had a speaker come in, and let's try to prevent suicide with anyone who we can, because we're all aware of it, because everyone here at the time, they'd experienced it.
Yeah.
But let's prevent it so we don't have to be aware of it after we lose someone.
Yeah, you know what I'm hearing? And I also identify with my identity as a Black woman evolving, because goodness, I think that at the point where I was just doing a lot, not just, but doing a lot, and realizing the effect that it was having on people.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at other women and how they identified first as a Black woman and how that affected them. And I said, well, how do I show up? How does me showing up as a Black woman affect it? As I'm hearing you, I think of a lot of the initiatives that are going on, and not a lot of Black women are championing these things, like suicide prevention. My goodness.
Yeah.
Suicide prevention, Alzheimer's, all of these things.
Yeah.
And as you're talking, I see the fact that a Black woman doing these things has such impact for other people to say, oh, I can do it too. Like, you're telling your story just allows another Black woman to say, oh, that's my story too, and be able to step up and walk in it. So as you say, like, you're evolving, I identify with that. But one of the things that I think I would like to know a little bit more about is when you first, as you got into African dancing and being at FAMU. I went to PWI. I went to Georgia. I went to UGA. So while we talked about dancing, you not taking dancing long term, I do think I have seen, and this is my hypothesis, I've seen that when Black people go to HBCU, when they take part in African dance, they lead their lives with a little bit more confidence for who they are. Would you say that at the or even as you say, it's still evolving, as it was evolving in the early stages, what are some of the things that you feel like you got from those experiences, those direct African American experiences? Yeah, that was my first time growing up, I went to an all-Black Catholic church. That's still a little different than all-Black Baptist church. Elementary, middle, and high school, I went to predominantly white schools. In a lot of situations, I was the only Black child in a classroom, so that connection is different. When I attended FAMU, it felt like home. I danced for a little bit down there. I took my first African American Studies class my freshman year, and it was eye-opening, because the summer leading up to my freshman year in college, I participated in the National Black Arts Festival. So I worked in a store with selling all African American books. I had my first print from, I think her name was Vernetta Honeywood, and she signed my print, and just immersing myself around everything African American, National Black Arts Festival, where we celebrated ourselves. So then to go to a HBCU and connect with people from all over, I'm not going to say from the United States, because I had some West Indian friends as well. And to this day, I still have my 4 best friends from when we first met our freshman year.
So I know that you'll agree, enjoying myself while I work is the vibe that I'm trying to be on. So I want to invite you guys to Sidebar ATL here in Atlanta, Georgia. Sidebar, on top of the good food and live music, they have 3 different experiences. That means you can join me in the garden room
in the gold room if you want to try the top of the line hookah. And they also have the dungeon, where I hear what happens in the dungeon stays in the dungeon. So it's the perfect mix. If you're here on business or you want to blow off some steam after work, you can meet me at Sidebar ATL so that you can have a little bit of dinner and then turn up afterwards if that's your jam. So check us out, 79 Poplar Street here in downtown Atlanta, or you can call 678-800-0741. Let's get it. Work and play at the same time, right?
In my opinion, and that's when you realize that you really didn't see your fit there if you couldn't continue your program the way it needed to be.
Literally, you speaking to me, please. on days, we all forget our whys sometimes.
Yeah.
But there are days when I, in the world of trying to make it what I need it to be.
Yeah.
I have to go back to these moments where, like, the beginning days of us creating the career readiness program. And I say us because, like, yes, I was championing the thing in the background and the framework and everything, but it really would not have been what it was without you guys. Like, when I say you, like the volunteers, and specifically our relationship and how it developed in the career readiness program is very instrumental. So on that topic, and to give everyone a background, because sometimes I forget, like, it's all of us, we are here. To give you guys some background about the Career Readiness Program, it was developed through my own experiences in professional development.
Right.
I was in this program called MLT, Management Leadership for Tomorrow, for Black and brown young people who want to make it successful in corporate. And by the time I was introduced to the people at Covenant House, I was like, why don't they have the same opportunities as I do?
Right.
It was literally like opportunities. But then getting some of the people in the room, and what I'll say is, like, having you as a volunteer, you turn the framework into a real heartbeat.
Yeah.
For example,
we
had, like, you remember we would do mock interviews?
Right.
And you would sit across, Justin was your first mentee. And you would sit across, and we would do the curriculum, right? But you were willing to stay later. Yeah. You were willing to, like, help him with his vernacular, right? Yeah. You were willing to, like, we were champion, like, do the question over and over and over. And that is where what we get, like, I'm thinking about your experience in FAMU, right? What we get from support in our community. Right. These young people didn't have that. Right. Right? And to send them off into corporate America, let's say it was just the framework. And they did the resume building, they did the interview skills, they did the networking, and then they got into corporate. Yeah. Without being able to have a conversation with you, and, like, a Black woman who we didn't necessarily, like, have, like, oh, you're a Black man going into a Black environment, but we had real conversations. Yeah. That, I believe, is what allowed them to go onto the ground and just be who they are. And still, like, the goal was for them to be able to talk to us more and work through those, like, mental challenges of being in an environment where
they're
nobody looks like
with.
Exactly. Yeah. What was it about the Career Readiness Program? Because I think at that time, you were someone I respected. We have similar had mutual friends, but we hadn't had the relationship that we had before. What was it about you when the Career Readiness Program came about that all of the things that influenced you to be a part of the Career Readiness Program?
It was about giving people the opportunity. Sometimes all people need is just a chance. It's not always about proving yourself that you need the chance. Just give me a chance or opportunity to be better, to do better, so that I can then live the life that God has destined for me. And sometimes it's about reaching back and helping them and pulling them up and sitting them down. Okay, this is why you need to answer the question this way. This is the perception of you before you walk into the door. So you're dealing with those unconscious bias before you walk into the door. So then when you open your mouth to speak, you need to be prepared to have an intellectual conversation with someone about why they need to hire you. What you did is you developed a pipeline for homeless youth to then be able to provide for themselves and to have a future. You brought up Justin's name. He'd never been on an airplane before. And here he is looking forward to traveling around the world from a program and an opportunity that you provided for him.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a disservice for me not to help him. And so I think that is why I devoted myself to the program, to Justin, because you could see that he wanted more. And he was so excited about the opportunity. He was the only one in the program that graduated out of, I think it was, we started out with 12 or 15,
mm-hmm.
but who took the program seriously because he wanted a better future.
Mm-hmm.
He was hired on by the company. He was able to get his own apartment, and he was making a way for himself and looking forward to taking his first trip on an airplane.
Yes. I think that moment when we bring this up, it's always bittersweet for so many reasons, which we can talk about all day. But you're right. I think that the opportunity and you being a part of it, when I say you're right, it's really like, I'm glad you decided to be a part of it and give him that opportunity. Yeah. You mentioned like those what I heard was unconscious bias.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not quite sure if you said it that way, but one of the things that I was hoping to mitigate
mm-hmm.
when creating that program was the internal or the social awkwardness of interfacing with a manager or a director when you feel like, okay, I'm experiencing homelessness, I'm a homeless person, or I don't qualify for this role. I wanted to break down that barrier, right? Because at that time, what I said was, you know, you are a black boy or you're black children and you're going into the space where nobody looks like you, and you probably have all these assumptions about people being better than you, people like having more money than you, all of these things. From your experience, because you were part of the program a couple of years, not even just about the program, but just you've got 20 plus years in corporate.
Yeah.
What are some of those unconscious bias, those like self-doubt thoughts, either like from like younger black people you've seen who didn't make it as long as you did, and even like as you experience more people like me, what are some of those unconscious bias or subtle micro experiences that
the microaggressions
that you've seen happen, that it's important for other black people to understand how to overcome?
I think that's funny. I led with that. I know a lot of times when we're in a meeting environment that you can't say I think. You have to affirm what you're saying. But it's my personal thought, so I should be able to say I think. And it's just through and don't, you have to sound self-assured. And as soon as someone sees you, I remember one time I walked into my director's office. This was years ago, and she was like, "Oh, you always look so nice, or you dress so nice." And I want to say, because that's how my mother raised me. It's not because of the environment. It's because of the work that KG, that's what we call my mom sometimes, KG and Herman, that's what they instilled in me. They instilled in me to be proud of who I am, to always look my best. And that's something that I say to my children. And it's okay to make mistakes. But one thing I will say is, don't remunerate on things too much, because then that's when that self-doubt seeks in. It seeks in deep when you always doubting yourself. And I think I developed some of that just from all the feedback I received over the years. And I remember I wanted to go up interview for this position, so I was talking to my manager about it. And she was like, you'd be good in that role because you're so articulate when you speak to leaders. Like, okay, I'm articulate regardless of whom I'm talking to. But those are the things that I was glossing over back in the late 90s, early 2000s, like those subtle microaggressions. That's what makes me want to go into my next career, helping people, not having to deal with that. Yeah. And go ahead.
I got questions for days. What was the time?
Excuse me.
No worries. What was the time in your career that you felt empowered, and who was it that that helped you, like with confidence or whatever it was that empowered you?
My mother. without a doubt, my mother, because of who she had to be, because she came, she didn't have a lot when she grew up, and she had to deal with a lot growing up. And she was a very strong woman, and she did not take, I don't want to say any mess, but she didn't take any mess, but she wasn't afraid to stand up for herself. And if she saw something that was wrong, not just for herself or for someone in her family, if she saw someone that was wronged, she would want to correct that. Yeah. And she lived life pursuant of everything she wanted to. She traveled the world, and she lived to the beat of her own drum, sometimes to her detriment, but
listen,
she was unapologetic about who and how she was. So I remember growing up, there's a show called Dynasty with Diane Carroll, and the women were always so sharp and how they dressed, and they were well put together. So she would look at it every Wednesday, and if she saw something like an outfit, she was like, okay, I'm gonna make that. And the next day she would be downstairs making it, and she made it better than the suit that they were wearing on TV. Yes, that's just, she was like, okay, I want to open my own salon. She opened her own salon.
I was gonna ask, so was your mom an entrepreneur?
She was. Well, before she became an entrepreneur, she was a bookkeeper for our church, St. Anthony's Catholic Church, and the school. So that was a school I went to up until 3rd grade. But then she was like, okay, she always wanted to own her own salon. So then she went and became a licensed cosmetologist, and she was also an instructor at the school and sat on the board for people that wanted to be certified or become licensed. So she owned her own salon for a while, and then she got tired of that. So then she went back and she would do taxes. So it was just, okay, I'm tired of this. So she never defined herself in one specific role. It was what I wanted to do at the time, and that's what I did. And so that's who I grew up seeing. Yeah. And that's what I grew up seeing. Like, I don't have to be contained in this box. And I don't have to be held back by any means because of how I grew up. I can do what I want, how I want, when I want, and that's what she did. The polar opposite, my dad, he was very quiet and subtle, and he rose the ranks through Atlanta police, becoming a major in the police department, and then after he retired, he was like, okay, I want to open a funeral home. And so that's what he's been doing. That was his second career. So just seeing both of them, knowing that when they grew up, like before they went to high school, they had to pick cotton. Wow. Yeah. So then.
Where were they from? What city?
Sylvania, Georgia. It's a little small town, about an hour from Savannah. And they never forgot the lessons that they learned, but they then would teach us those lessons. And it was up to us to decide how we interpreted them and what we wanted to do with them. I remember one Thanksgiving, my husband and I, we just moved. We were having everybody over, and my dad was like, you late. And he just walked in, and he had a part of a cotton bush, and he just laid it on the table. And he said, you may have come a long way, but you still have a long way to go. And that was that. And he was like, okay, now we can pray. All that to say that, okay, you have your big dinner and I might be late, but you never know, I may have been going through something before I got here. And as you continue on that lesson, and I still have that cotton plant today in a vase, it's a remembrance of what they went through and where you came from. And it's hard work, it's determination, it's resilience, and it's perseverance.
Yeah. Before we started the podcast, we talked a little bit about critical race theory, and as you're talking, I want to say the city so bad, but Sylvania, Georgia.
Or Scriven County, yeah, Sylvania, Georgia.
Let's go. Okay. I was thinking about that, and your parents growing up, and then marrying and having you, and then the story you just shared where he brought the cotton to the house, right? Yeah. And it reminded me of the saying, I am Black history. You remember when, like back, I don't know, I feel like it was 10 years ago where like it was a whole campaign of I am Black history.
Right.
From you being able to have African studies, but then also having parents who picked cotton themselves.
Yeah. That's a generational way.
I think that's, for me, I'm hearing that's super grounding.
Yeah.
But what is it like for you to read about African American history?
Yeah.
And then you also having your own part of Black history?
Yeah. It's empowering, but at the same time, I don't want to use the word sad, but that's the only word that's coming to my mind right now, that a lot of things that we've gone through, we're still going through. And like my dad said, we may have come far, but we still have a long way to go. And it seems like to some degree, we've digressed in our fight and in our struggles, but we have so many inspirational people and mentors that we can look up to and see that, you know, you have to want it. You can't give up, and you just have to be pursuant. Like I said, that goes back to where we started from. You have to be pursuant of what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think now, yes, I'm living my life. I will continue to live my life. But it's so much more important for my husband and I to instill that in our children, and to see that there are literally endless possibilities. I mean, but whatever we told them, whatever you want, or whatever you want to be exposed to, we will surround you, and we will expose you to it so you can experience it, so that you can make an informed decision of this is truly what you want, and you can experience it for yourself and not live based on how others experienced it or what they thought it should be or how it should be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Speaking of like mentorship, and the fact that you have like so many like family stories rooted in you, also connecting the mentorship that we provided to the young people in Covenant House, and then acknowledging the fact that we're not where we need to be, where we want to be, and then we have digressed in some spaces. What are some ways that you feel like that you've even had ideas or you've seen work in like nucleuses, like we've done, like between one-on-one or small groups, that we could bring to like larger populations, so that we can, I don't know, have either conversations or do things to move the needle forward from where we sit?
Yeah, I think it's the grassroots efforts, and it's just don't ever think that you're so big or so much better than someone else that you can't reach back to help someone else. And I think we do more of a disservice to ourselves if we don't reach back to help one another. And it's developing that pipeline like you did, to give those who haven't had an opportunity exposure to something new, different, and maybe better. And for Christian to be a homeless Black male, that's almost, that can be perceived as 2 or 3 negatives against him. But he was able to overcome because somebody was willing to help him and help him along each step of the way. And that's what we did, from the resume skills to the interviewing to coaching to being available to help someone when they're in need. I know after I retired in August of 2020, and I started helping my dad, I was like, one thing that you have to do is you have to ingrain yourself back in the community. So last summer we were having monthly food drives, because we know a lot of people in the area, they have food insecurities. And so how are we to provide a service but not be of service? And that's of service in the community. So if someone has food insecurities and we have a way to give food to them with a mobile food pantry, why aren't we doing that? Like my daughter, part of her project as a senior, her CAS project is a diaper drive, giving back to the pregnancy aid clinic for mothers in need. If you're in a position to help somebody be just a little bit better than they were 5 minutes ago or 5 hours ago, then why aren't you doing it?
Yeah.
And I think once we all learn that lesson of how to help each other, then the world will be just a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That value of like servant leadership is super duper ingrained in you, and I can hear that. And speaking specifically about Christian, I mentioned Justin earlier, but I remember Christian specifically was your mentee. You helped me through a difficult time when Christian passed away.
Yeah.
But this isn't necessarily about Christian so much as it's about how much you really gave to the situation, because I realized, as you mentioned, your daughter, you also are a wife, like you manage a lot of different pieces. What is it like for you, like corporate volunteering and skills-based volunteering? I take it very seriously, because I know people like corporate American citizens, they do their 9 to 5, they have lives.
Yeah.
And for a program like the Career Readiness Program, it really took some investment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and it's volunteer on your own time, something that you're not getting paid for. So that's how you know it's truly a passion. If you're doing it and you aren't getting paid for it and you love it to your core, that's how you know that you're in the right place of what you're doing, and how then you could then pivot that and maybe turn it into a paying profession. But at the time, you were giving part of your tithe, your time.
It was a thing, and I did it with no consideration of like how other people would be. But what I learned, so you might not know this, but coordinating the program, there are a lot of people who are just fickle. And not fickle because they are fickle to their core. Yeah. But you got flight benefits. You would rather go to Tobago on a Friday to Sunday instead of honor your commitment on a Friday night or a Thursday night to come to do mock interviews, right?
Right. For 2 hours.
Right. So for me, yes, I was super in, but it still wouldn't have been what it was if it was just me, because I needed someone like you to be consistent and to show up. But you, as much as you poured into Christian, you had a whole life that you were dealing with. So what is it like being a mom and a corporate employee and an entrepreneur and a wife? Yeah. And a soccer mom and a badass. Like, what is it like managing all of these different parts of you?
Time is very valuable. And you have to allocate your time and invest your time where you want it to be. I invest in my family. I invest in my kids. I invest in being a part of helping somebody else along, because it's important. And one of my favorite songs is "I Love You in a Place Where There's No Space or Time." And to hear that and understand what that really means, because time is the only thing that you can't give back. You can't get the time back at all. So I value my time, and I utilize my time where I want to invest it. And I think that's it. And you just have to understand where your priorities are. I made a decision a long time ago that my family would be my priority. Before my husband and I had children, our 3 rainbow children, we had 3 miscarriages, so a miscarriage before each full-term pregnancy. So it was along those times that you realize that you may want to start a family, but it's not guaranteed and it's not promised. So I cherish my family with my whole heart. And people don't always understand that. But then that's how I was able to devote the Working Family Business Resource Group, because I knew that there are so many being a part of a family or just being a caregiver, it could take you in so many directions that you're not even prepared for. But as long as you have someone that can help you or, provide resources for you so that then that can help you, it's important. So I think just prioritizing your time and allocating your time to where you want to be.
You said it really clear, and that was, you made a decision that you were going to put your family first. Yeah. And I'm thinking about the people who haven't yet made a decision, because I'm in the business of people who don't make decisions. And before you make decisions, I feel like life is like unbearable because you don't know what to prioritize. Yeah. What was it like for you before you found clarity in like what your priorities were going to be? Yeah. Was there ever a time where you felt like, I don't know what to focus on, I don't know what to do, or my life is stuck?
Yeah, no, not stuck, but necessarily I may have wanted to go a different direction, but I knew it would take more time. And you're constantly reprioritizing your prioritizations. And are you willing to, and something will always be a sacrifice. Sometimes people say it's quality over quantity, and it all depends on the situation. Because I tell you, when I'm meeting with a family making funeral arrangements to bury their loved one, they wish they had more time. And that's something that they can't get back. Yes, they may have had quality time, but right now they want more quantity. So it's just making each and every moment count, and making sure that when you're there with whomever, that you're present in that moment and you're there for them. And you may be here and your mind is not doing 10 different other things. So just being present in the moment while you have that time.
Absolutely. I think when I say owning your time a lot in the way that I talk, because a lot of times you feel like your time is not yours, especially when we're in corporate, right? Well, in that regard, right, it's definitely not yours.
Yeah.
But then in the other regard where you feel like it's your managers, or you feel like it's your jobs or the responsibilities that you have, where you might have a family, but hey, I got to put this business meeting over, like whatever.
Yeah, and sometimes you do. And at that moment, in that time, that's when my time is being devoted. So when I'm at work, I'm giving 120%. So, but when I step away and I'm with my family, yes, I'm present and there for them as well. So it's just, like I say, being present in the moment of where you are now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You retired after 24 years.
Yeah.
And part of, the transition of people who are intentionally leaving before they hit their retirement is like, what are you going to do when you have your time back on your calendar, right?
Yeah.
For you were in a transition of you when you left, your mother was also in the process of transitioning.
Yeah.
And you had your time back. What was it like for you to be going through your retirement?
Yeah.
And then also being able to spend time with your mom during her transition?
Okay, I'm gonna have to take a deep swallow on that one. I would say it was one of the most important moments of my life, because like I said, I retired on the 1st, she passed on the 14th, but the day before she passed, they called and said they were putting her on oxygen, and we kind of knew what that meant, but not really. Like the gravity of understanding, like your mother is here and then she isn't. It's surreal. And the whole family was there, but for, I would say, about 6 or 7 hours, I sat in one chair right in front of her bed, about 5 or 6 feet away from me, and I just sat there in that time with her. And my family kept asking me, Ree, are you okay? I was like, yeah. But I just needed to be still in that moment. I just needed to be still in that moment.
You mentioned earlier, some people say quality over quantity. And as you're talking, I feel like there's nothing like being able to just spend your time. You know, you don't know what's going to happen in 6 hours, but to just spend your time there. Because it reminds me of times when, like, my grandmother was going through her stroke and her transition, as it were, and you just want to be there. Yeah, it's not like, but before I left corporate, it's like, well, I got 30 minutes, Grandma, you understand? I'm gonna do this real quick, pop in and pop out, as long as you see my face. It was so transactional. And as you're talking, to spend 6 hours doing what you want to do and not have to check an email, I'm thinking that was like, that's quantity. It's invaluable. It's invaluable.
Because not everybody has that moment. And just to be there and be and not do, that was important. That was important.
As we talk about, like, your shift, I'm thinking about identity. I asked you earlier about your identity as a Black woman, but then there's also your identity as a corporate woman for 24 years.
Yeah.
There's also your identity as a mom and all of the things, right?
You're right.
What are you doing to like process your identity in this new chapter of life?
It's important to always feel that you aren't wasting your time and that you're always contributing to something more than just yourself. Sometimes I feel that people take advantage of who I am, because if you need something, I will go above and beyond, and I will be there for you without a doubt. Sometimes I feel that people take advantage of that, but at the core of who I am, that's just me. I'd rather give to you to make sure you're okay than I would give to myself. But I kind of pivoted on that, and I give to God first. As soon as I wake up in the morning, something that I started back running. So after I dropped my kids off, well, let me back up. I read my devotional and my 3-minute prayer book, drop the kids off at school, and then I'll go run. Sometimes I run 3 miles, sometimes I run 5 miles. Yes. But when I'm physically tired, then I'm spiritually and mentally present to what I need to focus on. So sometimes when I'm running, I had a friend, my children's godfather, he lost his life partner. So on those runs, I would pray for him. Or I have a friend, my roommate from college, she was going through breast cancer. I turned it into a prayer run, and I would just, while I'm being strong enough to do this, I know that they may be physically or mentally weak. So the first thing I can do is pray for them in addition to everyone else that I was praying for. My aunt, it was going through breast cancer. So this is all within a year and a half. All of this is going on. But I take my running as a time to connect with God. Listen to music. Sometimes it's spiritual music. Sometimes it's house music. Sometimes it's trap music. It just all depends on the mood at the time. But I always make it a conscious effort to pray for somebody else while I'm on those runs, because I'm strong enough to do this right now, and they might be weak.
I think that was a dope concept. I want to say philosophy, but help me understand the idea, and let me make sure I said this right, but you said when you are physically weak, you're spiritually and mentally strong. That's what I heard. So how did you learn that about yourself, or how did you learn that about
I'm not
life?
a runner, and I want to be that person that can run the 8 or 9 minute mile, but in truth it might be an 11 or 12 minute mile, but I'm still going, and I'm still taking one step in front of the other, and I'm still working on my breath, even though I feel like I might be out of breath. But as long as I finish and I don't give up, I keep putting one foot in front of the other to continue that run. Physically, I'm depleted because I'm working so hard, but at the same time, I'm able to focus and have a moment of clarity on what I do need to concentrate on. So moving forward, what do my next steps look like? I don't know, but that's my moment to think about it and work on it in that moment.
I think I'm understanding it a lot more, because there are a lot of people. When you
work out, you're just so tired. If you have a good workout and you give it your all, at the end of it, you're physically tired.
Yeah.
But you still that's when your endorphins are going, you're feeling happier, your mind is clear, it's not clogged with everything. You get to focus on what you're focusing on. You're focusing on your workout and whomever you choose to pray about or think about at that time.
Yeah. I'm thinking about a whole bunch of high achievers.
Yeah.
Like you get to go. And so many people don't even have a rest and recovery period. They just go from one thing to the next for long stretches of time, years. And the nuance of most stories for people who are super successful and successful in any right. Well, as soon as you sit down, like you mentioned, your endorphins are going, but as soon as you sit down, or as soon as your body tells you to sit down, that's when your faith kicks in. That's when your spirituality gets a chance to kick in.
Yeah.
That's a really dope philosophy. I'm gonna have to take that.
Yeah.
Like write it down and really like consider, because when like our bodies sit us down, that's when we really have to sit down and think.
And and if you push yourself to a point where God is like, okay, your body needs a break, and it may be a sickness, an illness, or just a moment in time where you aren't able to do, then where does that leave you? It leaves you on your mental and your spiritual thoughts of, okay, this is how I need to overcome and fight through this right now. And at the end of every run, when I'm stretching out, I always listen to the song, Be Grateful, a gospel song, Be Grateful.
Gratitude is the number one value that's kept me going.
Yes.
Oof. I gotta pick that song, and then you said another song earlier where I was like, oh, I'm gonna write that down.
Oh, Donny Hathaway.
Which one was it? Because you said
I love it. Well,
love you.
It's in a place where there's no space or time.
Yes, that's what I'm gonna have to get back to, because music is what charges me. Music is what motivates me when I feel empty. Because I don't know, it just helps me get more connected. It's a conduit, and I'm trying to figure. I realize nothing's good, nothing's bad, but I think that when I have music, it makes me it has given me a deeper connection. I know some people are much more introspective and without any type of external primer.
Right.
But music is what like literally grounds me.
Music is life. There is nothing that you go through in your life that you can't pick a song that will help you through, put you in a place where you could just sit and think, or just if you just want to vibe out. I know in the summers we're in the backyard with our reggae pumping and just enjoying each other and having a good time, and that's how our children are. Like, they will put on some reggae music in a heartbeat. Or my youngest daughter, who has a beautiful voice but doesn't like for anyone to hear her sing, but if you hear her in her room, she has a music playing and you just hear her sing. Or when she's playing the piano, it's just those subtle moments. And then my son, who's just feeling himself, we starting the locks on his hair. He's 9, and all of them are well-rounded athletes and just good children overall. But he's starting to feel himself. So you kind of listen to the music he's listening to. So it's just something we always is always in our house, is music. Yeah.
You just said you don't. I don't know if you know you be dropping gems.
Oh no.
And I'm not a parent, but as a child, I remember playing music, and you are. I'm subliminally. Thank you, Lord. Communicating. You gotta help me out.
Right.
Communicating, right? And the gem that I just caught for parents, for sure, is to listen to the music your kids are listening to.
Of course.
Like lyrically. So in our space, I think that we can discredit a lot of music that's going on now as just trash.
Right.
But truth be told, a lot of people are picking up messages that are like really ingrained in the music.
Yes.
What have you how have you fostered like conversations with your children?
Yeah.
Or even with people based on like these musical conversations?
If I hear them saying something or singing something, I turn it off. Like, what does that mean to you? How do you interpret that? And then we have a whole conversation. I always allow them to have a conversation. Like, sometimes they may talk about something or discuss something at school, and then we have a separate conversation at home, because there's a school conversation and then there's a truth, reality, let's get real, let's talk about it conversation, because we don't want them to have preconceived notions of how things should be. Let's have a real conversation of understand what it could be and the implications of your thoughts if you were in whatever environment, whatever it may be. And that's just how we rear them, because we want them to know that everything will not always be easy. You have it real good in mommy and daddy's house right now, but once you step out on your own, right now is how. And not so much the 9 and 12-year-old, but the one going off to college at 17, we've exposed you to a lot of things. We have some real conversations with you about everything. So then when you go out into this world, away from us, away from our home, we need to know we prayed for you. You have your foundation, and you know right from wrong. So then the decision that you make, based on the information that you have, please make good judgments. Will it always be right? No. Know that we will help you through, but we need to help you through with you making at least good decisions for the majority of your life. I've made bad decisions. My husband's made bad decisions, but together we were able to come out on the other side. One, based on how we were reared, and two, the influences that we had in our life. Yeah.
I'm on my own journey to have something similar. I'm not trying to be Cherye. It's only gonna be one, but I'm on my journey to have something similar, right?
Yeah.
And also take some of the lessons that you've shared, and I've heard you share with your own children, and take that with me personally, and then even professionally, and how you've talked about, what we're navigating, what we have to navigate through as Black people through corporate America, if that's where we want to be.
Right.
I have to even go back and say, what did I learn about some of those experiences? But
you
then
have to be mentally strong.
It's boof.
Yeah.
I will say that it takes certain experiences to build those mental calluses.
Yes.
And for me, leaving the company, like that was one mental callus for me.
Yeah.
What was like a time where you had to like develop a mental callus, going from like cream puff to getting a little stronger?
Yeah. There were two situations. One, I was given a side-by-side to one of my Caucasian counterparts.
What's a side-by-side?
We were in a role whereby I was training her.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And it was very early in my career, and this was when I was a backup coordinator. I didn't have the position yet, but I was a backup, and I was training her, kind of letting her see. And the position came available. I was like, oh, I've been doing this for 2 months. I've been training. I've been backing up the other coordinators. And we both applied for the job. I was like, I'm not worried, because I've been training in this for a while, so I know it. No.
She got the role.
She got the role after I trained her for 2 weeks, and I've been doing the job for 2 months. And it was at that moment that while you're still at work in the middle of your shift, you have to keep it together, because how you act or how you react would determine your next steps. And that was during the time where you couldn't be as vocal if you felt that you had been wronged, or if you were. They called it a CLM, a career limiting move. If you were to vocalize how something may have been handled. And another situation was, it was right after the company had gone through bankruptcy, and they were basically saying that if you want to be considered for whatever role, you needed to have a degree. It was like, okay, I got that. So just applying for different jobs. And it was another situation, that same department, a Caucasian woman was able to get a role, and she didn't have a degree. She wasn't pursuing her degree, and I had mine. And it was like, so it's just in moments like that you had to be tough, and you had to become stronger.
Those type of situations will definitely make a person go. Have you ever seen anybody go off for some of the things? Because you really cool, calm, and collected.
Oh, no, I've gone off.
You've gone off?
Oh, yeah.
You gotta share. You gotta share.
And it wasn't my best moment. I was handling a project, and they said, this is what we need. In state, this is what we need at the end of the project. Cool. Had a team of 20. We killed the project. And so then the general manager at the time, he came in, he called me in his office. He said, how do you think that project could have gone better? I was like, well, this is what you gave me. This is what the end goal was. And we achieved that, so I'm not understanding something, or at least it wasn't communicated to me. And he was like, well, you didn't move. What happened? The flight was overbooked, and we had to move some people around. And he said, well, you didn't do it in the way that we wanted to, and so they think you failed at handling this project. And more words were said, but basically I lost it, because you should have told me this at the beginning of the project and not at the end. When you have the end state goal of what you wanted to see, but now you're going to come back around after several checkpoints and tell me that I had failed. I got up, walked out, and I slammed the door. Wasn't my most proud moment. Was it 20 years ago? Yes. But I still learned that, Cherye, you can't do that. So that next morning I went in and I apologized. And we had a different conversation, but I think taking ownership and accountability of how I handle it went a little bit better, because he was like, you're right, we didn't communicate up front what we wanted to see, but can you handle every situation like that? No. But that was a learning moment. Like, you can't fly off the cuff like that.
Yes, but I feel like we are in the world of DE&I and us having these conversations. Well, one, that's one of those difficult conversations that anybody could go through, whatever color,
right?
Because that's like a feedback thing. But then, as we were talking about situations where we feel like race is at play, creating this new environment where DE&I is more an open conversation and it's not a CLM. Career limiting move,
right?
Like, that's the hope, right? But in this particular situation, given that was 20 years ago, and then the connotation that career limiting moves have,
yes.
Like, what is your idea, like, when someone's going through that right now, like, let's say they did it yesterday, they just went off the handle. What's your perspective on those CLMs now?
We're in a different environment now, and as you can see, people are less tolerant of not being appreciated as a person, either individual contributor or as a leader. And you can see people are leaving their jobs in droves or retiring from droves. And I think having gone through this pandemic, it has taught us one thing, well, a couple of things. One, time is precious and it's not guaranteed. And two, I don't necessarily have to tolerate how somebody wants to treat me if they're not treating me as the person that I should be, because I know my value. So before you try to tell me my worth, I already know my value. And then from that, I'm not staying. And even millennials, I think they also taught this world a thing or two, like, I'm not staying here for 10, 15, 20 years. I'm gonna stay here for the moment. If I want to, and then if not, I'm leaving because I can, and there are other opportunities out there. That wasn't the environment 20 years ago. So it's just been life lessons, and along the way, it's not about being a leader, a servant leader, but if you're a servant leader, I think it goes hand in hand with being a moral leader. If you have the moral obligation to improve a situation for someone, for your team, for an individual, then as a servant leader, you're morally obligated to help improve that. And I don't think you hear servant leader a lot of times, but rarely do you hear moral leadership brought up.
That's important. It feels even more forgiving in the sense that you understand that you want to guide the people to be the best people they can be, and you want to lead from that space.
And you want to empower people when they're at their best. They don't have to be all knowing, but they have to be willing to grow in a new role. If you see that potential in somebody, then by all means help them along their career and their career path by pulling out the best in them and helping them to improve on opportunities where they could be better.
Yeah. Given the fact that you are no longer in corporate, my personal bias is, yes, we have more entrepreneurs who think like this, and even to be able to create an organization or go into an organization and be able to instill this mindset more freely, it really excites me. So when I think about your mom being, an entrepreneur, really following her passion. She gives me some type of passion to just kind of be me. Because so many times, there's part of me that wants to, express all these different sides, but then stay focused. But then you also have, your dad who's been a fireman and policeman. Thank you so much. You've seen 9 to 5. You've seen entrepreneurship. You've seen leadership. You've been a leader. What's your thoughts or your idea? And I know a little bit, but I want you to like kind of explain from your perspective around entrepreneurship. And do you think that would ever be? How do you think that would be something that you would focus on? And how would it look for you if you were to take into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, my husband and I we started a game truck, and then we have more than one now, and then I started the spa truck, Glamour on Board, like mobile spa parties for girls, which is really fun, but we had to scale back because of the pandemic. I think with entrepreneurship, it teaches you a different type of grit. It teaches you can't rely, like if I take a day off, I could still get paid from a company, because I could take a vacation day and still get a paycheck. When you take off from your business, there's no money coming in. So it teaches you how to fight a little differently and move a little differently. You have a certain type of freedom that you may not have in the confines of working for someone else. So in that freedom, you're able to be more creative and just think about how to maneuver in a way in which you can set you and your family up for more success. I have all types of things and ideas in my head that I have to put into action, and that's another thing. You don't have a team of people working for you at this time. Right now, it's just you and transacting on your thoughts in order to produce revenue. But it's just acting on those moments to make better opportunities for yourself and possibly somebody else.
Yeah. Playing with the idea of, extrapolating where you might be. Because I know you're very flexible, and I'm never gonna be the one to be like, Cherye, what box are we gonna be in today?
No boxes.
Right.
None.
100%. What would you ever consider, or at this place in your life, would you ever see yourself building a company and then managing a team, like within the company, building it so big that it's like running a team, or would that be too much to start today?
I won't say that I won't ever go back into corporate America. Or say continue to pursue other opportunities. I think being where I am now, I like the freedom of just having endless possibilities and just being able to consider options that weren't considered before. And there's freedom in that. Yeah.
What are the things that get you excited these days?
It's corny.
It's not.
Going to my daughter's soccer game, listening to music. This one idea I came up with, I can't share yet.
Okay.
Bringing that to fruition, spending time with my family. I think where I am now is about spending just time with friends and family. We have a great summer coming up, and I'm looking forward to that. Just a lot of partying and celebrating, and
no row. Listen, we're gonna live. We are going to live our best lives.
Yes,
I got it. Well, hopefully, if you guys do any water parties or reggae parties in the backyard,
I would definitely call.
I am open. Listen, I am open because it has been a long time since I've been just able to like commune with people.
And you miss that connection. For a while, it was good. I was like, oh, this is great. We don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to drive, working from home. But then you get to a point where you kind of miss those interactions with your friends and just being out and about. Yeah.
There's so many different ways that I would love to close this out, but I think that because you particularly impacted my journey in such a very impactful way, especially since I was leaving corporate. I knew like I had to figure out what was the next thing.
Yeah.
And your words kept me grounded. One of the things that you said was, if you don't know, and I might be butchering it, but if you don't know your value or what value you bring, then anyone could
determine your worth.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, that always was a grounding thing, because if you take it a step further, you can be taken advantage of, because they see whatever value is, placed to their vision. And It's not a good or bad thing. It's just that if you don't know where you want to go, then you'll be susceptible to go wherever anyone else thinks you're valued. What would you say to the woman who is still trying to figure it out, not quite sure where they want to be, and maybe they're on their way out of corporate America. What would be your words to that person?
I would say follow your passion and persist through the pain, because you don't know your journey, but know that you can identify certain paths in your life. And what the funniest thing to me is like, oh, I have this planned in the next 3 years. I'm gonna do this in the next 5 years. This will happen. I say, take a step back, pray about your journey, know what you would like to happen in your life, and ask God for guidance. And you know, I say I love music, but a song that I listen to often is Order My Steps in Your Words. So God, order my steps in your words and have me live the life that you want me to live with the purpose and the passion that it should be lived. Being able to be there for others, guide others, and help others along the way. Yes. And I think that's most important for me. Success can come into play with that. Having a very loving family comes into play with that. But as long as God is ordering my steps in His words, then I know I'm living the life that I'm supposed to live and how I should live it. And that's what I would say to someone that's feel that they're tethered to corporate America, but yet they have one foot on the outside pursuing or wanting to pursue other options. Think about it, write it down, have a plan, write out your business plan. Think about how, like I said, think about how you think your steps should be, and then start that journey, but make sure you have the financial backing or the financial foundation that you need to continue to live your life so that you don't end up someplace where you don't want to be or you shouldn't be. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I think I even needed that today. So hopefully you guys got something from that. And if you didn't, like I always say, you can always pause it, rewind, take a note or two, and then figure out how you're going to apply that to your own career journey. Because while there's so much pressure around what you should be doing and what everybody else is doing, especially on Instagram, you have to remember, like you said, like our steps are ordered,
right?
Whether you know it or not. And then if you don't, then we have to take that time
to define yourself for yourself.
Yeah.
And don't let somebody else define it for you.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So, if there's somebody who's out here watching or listening to us right now, and they're like, you know what, I want some more of that Miss Cherye. Everybody needs a Cherye in their life. I swear. And they were like, how do I stay connected? How do I either work with you in the future? How do I connect with you? What's the best ways for them to reach out?
I'm on Instagram, or either you could reach out to Ari.
You could.
And I'm also on LinkedIn, Cherye Mercier. So they could reach out at any time.
Wonderful. Well, all of that information will be in the description below. Like I know I said everybody needs a Cherye, but everybody can't have
It's you and Courtney.
Listen, we all have our thoughts. We was like, listen, Cherye just be like getting us together, just from afar. And like I said, you do so much in your own life that it's so amazing that you get a chance to impact people with just the time that you do have to give to us. So,
well, I don't have time to waste time, and I don't want to waste your time. So we're going to have productive time together, because if there was one thing that was a resounding point over and over in our conversation, is time.
Yes, it was.
And it's important. And people need to realize that it is important and to make the most of it. Yeah.
Thank you. I can't thank you enough.
You're welcome.
Y'all got it. You know what you do. Until next time, I will see you next week. Peace out, guys.
Bye.
I love that.